I just think that the one thing that is going to happen is that there's going to have to be some group of players is going to have they're going to have to move off of some of their high priced players. And I think the guy that I would try to move off of is Kyle Juszczyk. I think that's the no brainer right there. I mean, he gets paid a ton to go in motion, and he's not a great short yardage fullback. He's he's nice, but I don't see a burgeoning market for him. I think they're paying him huge money, that other teams would not pay him. I'd probably go to him and say, Kyle, I'd like a huge pay cut, or we're going to go in a different direction. That's where my bloodletting would start, is with Juszczyk.
I'm 100% with you. I've been there for 2 years. I didn't think he should have been brought back in 2021. And here's why. It's not that he isn't an excellent player. Individually, Kyle Juszczyk is very good. He's a good blocker. He's very smart. He's a good route runner. He has excellent hands. He's underrated after the catch. Like, if he was utilized more, he could provide a greater impact. It almost feels like he's not utilized enough. The problem is the 49ers aren't exactly 100% of the time a 21 personnel team. He ends up adding up to play about 50% of the snaps every year. And Juwan Jennings, they play 11 personnel. He plays around the other 40, 50% of the snaps. It's somewhere near there. So they end up playing a near percentage of snaps. I think that's why it doesn't make that much sense, to keep him. And I don't buy that the fullback is this most important thing for the 49ers offense. I think he was a player whose skill set was important, and they used it to build their scheme. I think he was one of their initial signings because he was such a high character and versatile guy. He was an easy guy to sell, the Harvard education. They signed him early in their regime. He was a great guy to build culture and build their regime around. I think he has satisfied all of that. He's gone above and beyond in terms of being their first big signing in free agency, especially because their other big signing, Malcolm Smith, turned out to be a little bit of a biscuit for them in 2017. And now I don't see the value for him. The other offenses with Shanahan, did we ever talk about I guess Vonta Leach made a Pro Bowl in Houston, but nobody ever talked about the fullback in Cleveland. Nobody ever talked about the fullback in Atlanta, right? We talked about Julio Jones. We talked about Andre Johnson, Dwayne Brown, Joe Thomas, Jake Matthews. So I think this idea that the fullback is the most important thing is a little bit overblown, trying to sell a free agent that they paid a lot of money to initially. And I agree with you. I think it's time to move on from him. I also think Krug, they need a little bit of a culture change. And I don't mean this in terms of they need to change their culture. I mean this in terms of he's been here since 2017. He had to experience 2019, 2021, 2022, 2023. He's been there for all the heartbreak. Get some fresh energy, fresh blood, somebody who doesn't have all the scars that they've had to suffer the last few years. You can't get rid of everybody, but you can have a little bit of fresh culture and fresh leadership. And I think this is the first guy that needs to make way for that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds cold, but I mean, I'll look at it this way. I think they need to do two things with that fullback spot. Get a whole lot cheaper and a whole lot more dynamic, because I don't think it's kind of like in the NBA where you've got to have at least 4 shooters on the floor. I think if you're going to have 5 eligibles, they all have to be dynamic. You can't have a slowish weapon out there, either a blocker at tight end or a blocker at fullback. The guy that's super intriguing to me in this draft is the Louisville fullback, running back, one back. I'm not sure what he is. His name's Isaac Guerendo, and he runs in the 4.3s. And he's 228 pounds. And to me, I'd like to see the Niners go in that direction. Get rid of the expensive fullback and then put a fullback on the field that is dynamic, that you have to cover, that runs 4.3, that really threatens the edges of a defense. And he can run with power between the tackles. But, man, if this guy gets loose on the second level, he could take it the distance. And it's a rare player because there aren't a lot of guys who run 4.3 who are 220 pounds. But this kid out of Louisville, Guerendo, fits that bill. That's what I would try to do at fullback, is move on from, or not necessarily move on from Juszczyk, but definitely cut his salary and essentially move on from him, because I don't think he'll be in favor of that. But that's one guy. The other guy that I'd be in favor of moving on from is Jake Brendel. I saw DJ Reader just push him around, and I like Jake, good dude, smart guy, street free agent, but they gave him way too much money. I mean, $5 million for a
They're
street
stuck,
free
bro.
agent. That's a contract I would like to get out from underneath. That's a guy I would like to say goodbye to. And then I
Who do
think
you get though? Who do you get?
as far as Jake Brendel, as far as a center,
Mm-hmm.
there's centers in the draft I really, really like, but then I also like some of the guys on there. I think Colton McKivitz, his best position is center. And I actually kind of think that Nick Zakelj and Ben Barch might be decent centers as well. And I would try to fill center with maybe a draft pick, Zakelj, Barch, and McKivitz, and try to get out from Brendel.
Zakel's last free season though couldn't have you convinced that you could go
No,
into
you're
a
right.
yeah. I agree with you that Brendel isn't an ideal option. There's no doubt about that. So I'm on the same page with you. I think the reason he got the contract that he got and the reason the Niners are kind of stuck is they have a veteran team, right? Krug, you know what it is when you draft an offensive lineman. It's a long development arc for those guys because they go from one or two running plays in whatever college they come from, one or two protections. They're not always going up against the most elite of the elite pass rushers. There's only one or two games they really face an NFL rusher with those NFL traits. And now you come to the NFL, it's a little bit of a culture shock. A lot of them have to spend a year changing their bodies. Even the best ones, like Penei Sewell, even had his ups and downs as a rookie. That's just what happens to offensive linemen. So you don't know that you can really trust a rookie center, especially one that you're going to take in the middle rounds to come in and play right away. And then look at Brendel, right? Probably a league average center. He's not, I would call him a below average player to an average player, somewhere in that range, right? But there's not that many great centers in the NFL. You're kind of stuck in the between a rock and a hard place looking for offensive linemen, especially if you're not drafting them very high in the draft. So I'm with you in terms of, hey, I would love to get upgraded center. I just don't know that there's really a viable option. Maybe we go into the draft and maybe I start looking at centers. I haven't really started looking at the draft, and you come to a conclusion that you find a guy that's just totally worth it. That's Travis Frederick or Tyler Linderbaum that you can take at 31 and that's your new starting center. Or maybe there's a guy in the second or third round that's that kind of guy, but I don't know about that, and therefore it's tough for me to look at Jake Brendel and offer anything better than him, even though he's not the world's greatest option at center.
There are other spots as well. I mean, like I would look around when I'm looking at their depth chart. I'm thinking, okay, where could I cut money? I could cut money with Ray McLeod. I don't need Ray as much as I like Ray. I don't need Ray. I
Mm-hmm.
can cut money with that third quarterback. I don't need Sam Darnold at $5 million. I think
Right.
Brandon Allen and a rookie can fill in fine.
100% with you there.
Yeah,
100% with you.
I don't need Randy Gregory or Chase Young or Kevin Givens or Sebastian Joseph Day. I feel like I can fill in with younger players. I don't need Oren Burks. I don't need Demetrius Flanagan Fowles. I don't need Tayshaun Gibson. I don't need Logan Ryan. I feel like I can fill those spots with younger players and not lose any ground there. I don't know that there's a big bloodletting there, but that's where I would start.